Greenwich, Connecticut, October 1975. One of the wealthiest neighborhoods in America. Perfect lawns, private schools, Kennedy connections, and one teenage girl who never came home. She was 15 years old. Bright, athletic, funny, and by the next afternoon, she would be found murdered in her own backyard. Beaten, stabbed, left behind a pine tree.
Wow.
The murder weapon? A golf club. Traced back to the house across the street. For nearly 50 years, the question has haunted Connecticut. Who killed Martha Moxley? And did wealth and power help bury the truth? The twisted timeline, the Kennedy connection, the confessions, the lies, and the case that divided an entire town. This is the murder of Martha Moxley.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Crime Snob Podcast, where every Monday we dive into some of the most twisted local true crime stories. My name is Sandra Goriello.
And I'm Alice, and today I'm telling a story. To understand this case, you have to understand Belhaven, a gated enclave inside Greenwich, Connecticut. Even in the 1970s, Belhaven was elite. Old money, political connections, private clubs, massive estates hidden behind stone walls. This was the kind of place where kids wandered freely from mansion to mansion, and parents rarely ever locked their doors. And living there in 1975 was 15-year-old Martha Moxley. Friends describe Martha as outgoing and energetic. She played sports, loved joking around, had a close relationship with her mother, Dorothy. The Moxleys had moved to Belhaven from California a few years earlier, and Martha quickly became part of the neighborhood social scene. Across the street from the Moxleys lived the Skackles. And the Skackles were not just rich, okay? They were American royalty adjacent. The Skackle family was tied directly to the Kennedys.
Oh, wow.
Rushton Skackle's late wife had been Ethel Kennedy's sister. Okay? That made the Skackle children nephews and nieces of Robert F. Kennedy.
Wow, okay.
Okay? The family was wealthy, connected, untouchable seeming. Inside the sprawling Skackle home were several teenage boys. Thomas Skackle, Michael Skackle, and a chaotic household with little supervision. By many accounts, the Skackle house was the place kids gathered. There were drinking, smoking, late nights, minimal adult oversight.
I was going to say, no supervision. It's the perfect place.
Totally. And on October 30th, 1975, Mischief Night.
I was going to say, right before Halloween.
Yep. Did you used to celebrate Mischief Night growing up?
Not really. My parents were really strict.
Got it. But it was a thing.
It was a thing, yeah, 100%.
Okay. Everyone would end up there. Mischief Night was a huge tradition in the Northeast, and I'm pretty sure still is.
I think so.
Probably. Yeah. Teenagers roamed neighborhoods, toilet papering trees, ringing doorbells, causing harmless chaos.
Silly string.
Love that for them.
Yeah.
That evening, Martha was out with her friends. At first, nothing seemed unusual. But investigators would later spend decades reconstructing the final hours of her life. At approximately 7 p.m., Martha leaves home. She is wearing jeans, a blue parka, and casual clothes for a night out with her neighborhood friends. The teens wander Belhaven together. Eventually, they end up at the Skackle property. Witnesses later described a casual scene. Teenagers talking, flirting, watching TV, moving in and out of the house. Martha reportedly spent much of the night around Thomas Skackle, the older, more conventionally attractive brother. If you look up pictures of him, he was pretty cute. He had like this handsome, big blonde hair and definitely like traditional American boy.
Okay.
Multiple witnesses would later say Martha seemed interested in Thomas. But Michael Skakel was there too. 15 years old, awkward, drinking heavily.
And he was around her age?
They were the same age.
Okay.
Thomas was a bit older.
Gotcha.
And according to later testimony, possibly jealous. So at 9 p.m., a group of teens head toward the Skakel property swimming pool area. Thomas and Martha are reportedly flirting near the pool. One witness later remembers seeing them kissing. I was listening to a documentary about this, and I guess they were like in the car, and he had put his hand on her leg, and
It's like flirting.
touchy-feely,
Right.
flirting, kissing, whatever.
Okay.
Michael would later claim that he felt invisible around girls, especially compared to his very cute older brother. Yeah.
Okay.
That detail does become important years later, because prosecutors eventually argued that jealousy may have triggered a violent explosion. Around 9:30, this is believed to be the final confirmed sighting of Martha Moxley alive. She is seen near the Skakel property, and then she disappears. No witnesses came forward claiming they saw an attack. No screams were officially reported. But sometime between roughly 9:30 and 11 o'clock, something horrifying happened. Which, it's important to mention, I think, that she was wanting to go home. They had invited her somewhere else, and she said no. And decided to go home instead.
And they're neighbors, so home is like...
Right across the street.
Okay.
Yeah. Investigators would later determine that Martha was attacked with extreme violence. She was struck repeatedly with a golf club.
Oh my god.
So violently that the club shattered.
Stop.
The golf club.
Are you kidding?
Shattered. It shattered into 4 pieces, okay?
Wow.
Then stabbed in the neck with the broken shaft.
You're joking.
Yeah. That attack was personal. Frenzied overkill. Her pants and underwear were partially pulled down. But investigators never conclusively proved sexual assault. Her body was dragged beneath a pine tree in her family's backyard. Only steps from her own home.
Wow.
The next morning, Martha's mother realized that something was wrong. Martha never came home. At first, friends and neighbors searched casually. Then panic began spreading through Belhaven.
Yeah.
And shortly after noon, a tutor employed by the Skakel family named Kenneth Littleton discovered Martha's body.
Really?
Yes. Police arrived quickly. But almost immediately, problems began. The scene was chaotic. Neighbors wandered nearby. Evidence handling was questionable. The investigation lacked structure, to say the least. Years later, critics would say the original investigation was catastrophically mishandled.
And I'm assuming Greenwich probably doesn't deal with too many cases like this. Greenwich is, for the most part, a generally safe neighborhood.
I think it's probably one of the safest areas, probably, right?
Right.
Yeah. And from the very beginning, suspicion centered on the Skakels, because investigators quickly identified the murder weapon. A broken golf club.
Right.
From a set that belonged to the Skakel family, okay? Also important to mention that they only found 3 of the 4 pieces.
Wow. Okay.
Of the golf club.
Was
the
the
piece that was missing was the handle with the rubber, which would have had DNA on
evidence?
it.
Yeah.
And that has never been found. At first, police looked at multiple suspects. Thomas Skakel, Michael Skakel, and Kenneth Littleton, the live-in tutor that found her body. But despite enormous public attention, no charges came. And many people in Greenwich began asking the same question. Would this investigation have unfolded differently if the suspects weren't wealthy and connected? The Skakel family quickly hired powerful attorneys and private investigators. The boys were protected carefully. Interviews became limited, timelines shifted, stories changed, and over time, the case went cold. But rumors, they never stopped. As years passed, suspicion increasingly focused on Michael Skakel. Not because of forensic evidence. There wasn't much. No DNA, no fingerprints, no eyewitnesses. Instead, the case became about behavior, statements, confessions, and inconsistencies. As a teenager, Michael was eventually sent to the Elan school in Maine.
Okay.
Elan, which is a controversial behavior modification boarding school, like one of those ones that Paris Hilton was sent to, and they did that whole documentary about exposing the heinousness that occurs in some of those institutions. So he was sent to one of them in Maine.
Okay.
And it was a boarding school, so he lived there.
Did he have prior, behavioral issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Former students later described harsh confrontational tactics and psychological abuse that Michael would
inflict on them.
Yes. And according to several witnesses, Michael talked about Martha there.
Really?
Yeah. One former classmate later testified that Michael said, "I'm going to get away with murder."
Wow.
Others described statements that sounded disturbingly close to confessions. Years later, these witnesses would become central to the prosecution's case, but also deeply controversial. Some changed their stories, some had criminal histories. One later recanted parts of his testimony. Remember, these kids were also troubled as well, you know? But still, prosecutors believed that these statements mattered. One of the strangest details in the entire case came from Michael himself.
Oh, God.
Years later, while discussing the night Martha died, Michael described climbing a tree near her house and masturbating. That night.
Okay.
The night
of her murder.
Wow. He's like, I didn't see her. But yes, I did do that.
Interesting.
Yeah. He claimed that he had gone there after drinking and smoking marijuana. To prosecutors, this was devastating. Because it potentially placed him near Martha's home around the time of the murder.
Right.
To the defense, this was simply embarrassing teenage behavior twisted into evidence.
Gotcha. I mean, this isn't really typical teenage behavior, though.
Right.
You know,
right. That's
I'm sure teenage boys do weird things,
but that's a bit more than just weird teenage behavior. But I get what they're saying of they're
just trying to explain it away.
Why would he lie about something that's so weird?
Right.
Right? That was their thing. Yeah. But public perception shifted dramatically after that revelation. Because many people thought, why would anyone invent that story if it wasn't partly true? For years, Martha Moxley's murder lingered in limbo. Then, media attention reignited everything. As it does.
As it does, right.
Books, television specials renewed public outrage. And eventually, Connecticut reopened the case.
Well, okay.
And a one-person grand jury was convened. Witnesses were re-interviewed, old evidence was re-examined, and after nearly 25 years, Michael Skakel was arrested.
Really? Wow.
So in 2002, the trial became a media spectacle, as you could imagine.
How old was he at this? 2002? This happened in the 70s?
Yes. He was 40.
40, yeah.
Yeah. The trial became a media spectacle. A Kennedy relative accused of murdering a teenage girl in one of America's wealthiest neighborhoods. Come on. The prosecution argued Michael was jealous of Thomas, rejected by Martha, drunk and enraged. They painted the murder was an impulsive teenage explosion. But the defense attacked nearly everything. The witness credibility, the timeline, the lack of physical evidence. There were major holes. No blood on Michael, no DNA, no eyewitnesses. Still, after weeks of testimony, the jury convicted Michael Skakel of murder.
No way. I wasn't expecting that.
He was sentenced to 20 years to life.
Wow.
For many people, the conviction finally brought closure. But it didn't last. Over the next decade, Michael's attorneys launched appeal after appeal. And eventually, a judge ruled his trial lawyer had been ineffective. Michael was released from prison after serving more than 11 years.
Wow, no way.
Then the legal rulings started flipping back and forth. One court reinstated the conviction, another overturned it again. Finally, in 2020, prosecutors announced that they would not retry the case.
So recently, okay.
Michael Skakel walked free.
Wow.
Legally innocent. Publicly, the debate never ended. Some people believe Thomas was actually the stronger suspect. He reportedly spent most of the time with Martha that night, and he was the brother she appeared interested in romantically. But investigators ultimately focused on Michael instead. Thomas always denied involvement. Others point towards tutor Kenneth Littleton.
Really?
He was troubled. He was troubled.
Right.
Even Robert F. Kennedy publicly argued that there was stronger evidence against Littleton
No way.
than his nephews, which I'm
okay,
like,
but yeah.
all right, yeah, whatever. He had discovered the body, though. His timeline had inconsistencies. And he was young. He was, I think, only 23 the time of
all of this
the murder.
Right.
So he wasn't that much older
Right.
than Thomas, right?
Yep.
But no charges were ever filed. And decades later, no alternate suspect has ever been definitively linked to the murder. Perhaps the most remarkable figure in this story was Martha's mother, Dorothy Moxley. For decades, she fought publicly for justice. Court hearings, appeals, media interviews, and again, reliving the worst night of her life.
Yeah.
And even as the legal system twisted endlessly, she never stopped pushing. She died in 2024, still without a final answer. Today, the murder of Martha Moxley remains unsolved. No one is currently convicted. No definitive forensic evidence has ever publicly answered the mystery. But the questions remain. Did investigators focus on the right suspect? Did privilege shape the outcome? And somewhere inside the contradictions, confessions, rumors, and decades of courtroom drama is the truth about what happened to a 15-year-old girl on a cold October night in Greenwich. A truth that may never fully emerge. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous places, they look perfectly safe.